Good evening, wherever you are watching in from. Welcome to the Abingdon Co channel. My name is Abingdon, and I do lives every Tuesday where we talk about watches, and today we're going to be doing something not so specific to a watch, but specific to our everyday life, daylight savings time. And if you have not subscribed to this channel and you're just coming in fresh, then this is the channel where we go on adventures with women in non-traditional industries. We are a watch company. I am the owner of a watch company called the Abingdon Watch Company out of Las Vegas, Nevada. That's where I'm coming at you live from today. And so if you have not subscribed to our channel and you like to see really cool adventures, really cool things about watches, and just watching some seriously badass, amazing women, this is a pretty cool channel to subscribe to. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell next to it to get notified of all of our videos. But today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over daylight savings time. And it has a little bit of a history, which is actually kind of convoluted. It's a strange thing to get the entire world synced up on a particular time change. And honestly, not a lot of people or not a lot of countries are consistent with it, including the United States. So I'm going to go over a little bit of history on daylight savings time, and then also show you how to change the time zones on our two main movements, which is our Ronda movement and our movement, as well as our automatic movements. But if you have an automatic watch, you're probably used to changing the time anyway. If you're swapping out watches and you're not always wearing the same automatic watch every day, then you're probably going to have to change your time anyway. You're pretty familiar with it. But regardless, I'll go over those, and that'll just be super brief. But there's a really interesting history behind daylight savings time that I kind of wanted to just share some fun facts with you. If you do have any comments or you know something about daylight savings time, then by all means throw it in the comments below. Throw any questions that you have about it, and I'll make sure to address those in today's video. So let's get to it. Daylight savings time. Now, you may have heard there's a reminder that you can kind of, it took me years to figure this one out, but if you've ever heard of fall back and spring forward, that is related to daylight savings time. And the whole reason behind DST is to save energy. That was really what it was all about. But it actually traces back, Benjamin Franklin made a joke about it in the late 1700s in a paper that he wrote, and it was just kind of something that he was saying, oh, people could save more candle wax if they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but it was just kind of meant as a joke. But really, the first time it was officially proposed was by, I believe he worked at the post office in New Zealand. It was a guy named George Hudson, 1895, so about 100 years after Ben Franklin. And he was a big bug collector. But when you collect bugs, you have to sync up to the bug schedules. So he kind of made an official proposition to New Zealand to change the time by 2 hours. He suggested a 2-hour change so that he could have an easier time collecting bugs. Kind of laughed at, not really taken serious. And then fast forward a couple decades later to when World War I came around. And though I should say, let's give credit to Canada. Canada in 1908, there was a small town that did experiment with it, but it never really caught on. So then in 1916, Germany was the first official country to implement it nationwide. The reason that they did that is to save on energy. This has always been an energy saving tool that countries have used because you have to conserve coal, you have to conserve different means of energy, even electricity, and so they are trying to make it as an energy savings ordeal. So Germany did it in 1916, and then, and I believe Canada actually did it about a week earlier, so they still get like the official, we did it first credit, and then the rest of Europe and the US, we all kind of changed onto this whole idea of in the spring, we're gonna roll the clocks forward, that's spring forward, and then in the fall, we're going to roll them back, that's fall back. And it's, hey Paul, yo Canada, right on. So yeah, Canada totally gets some credit. And so that's what we do. We spring forward, we fall back 1 hour. But at the time, during the wartime, it was a 2-hour change in a lot of places. And they only really wanted to do it during the war because people we're people. We are adverse to change, right? So it was Roosevelt called it wartime, and that's what the rest of the country did. We only did it during the war. So it was wartime so that we could conserve all of these sources of energy. And then after the war ended in 1945, we just changed back to regular standard time. And we didn't do any annual change. Not until 1966. 1966 was the Uniform Time Act, which made it an annual change of springing forward and falling back. And we first did it as the last week of April to the last week of October, kind of a 7-month change. And so that was what that was all about. But again, we are adverse to change. We are people, creatures of habit. We don't like doing this. So what we did is we repealed it again. And we just kept going back and forth. This has kind of been a 20th century adjustment that we're all just like, no, we don't want to do it. Yes, we want to do it. Interestingly, today, 40% of countries observe daylight savings time. It's not a majority thing. And even states, even within the United States, there are several states that do not observe daylight savings time. Now, if you have tuned in, this is a YouTube only special that I'm doing. If you order a watch and you include, yes, I just said it, so it's true. If you order a watch or any other product, an extra band, because maybe you already have a watch. I know, Paul, you've got a watch, so I'm gonna throw this out to you as well. Any future orders from after this video is created, if you include in the comments several states, I'm gonna say all the states, or all the provinces in Canada, or give me like 3 main countries that do not observe daylight savings time changes, then I'm gonna include a free gift. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, it's gonna be a surprise, but it will only be a YouTube special, and so if you're watching this video, you get the perk and nobody else does. I'm not gonna email it out, I'm not gonna put it on any of our social medias, it's not gonna be on our website, it's just gonna be on this episode. So just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, so back to the fun facts. So yeah, so then get this. This is kind of interesting. I think this is really interesting. So we're looking at the last week of April to the last week of October for daylight saving time. That's the spring forward part and that's the fall back part. Then in 2007, kind of recent history, it's all about the candy lobbyists. So if you think about the last week of October, what do we have? It's coming up, right? It's Halloween. So the candy industry was all like, oh, we're losing so much money, because when you look at the statistics of the money that's saved or the money that's made in certain industries, the energy industry, which we all originated daylight savings time on, is a little, maybe we do save it, maybe we don't. Yes, we do save energy utility-wise, but then people just make up for it by buying more like logs for the fireplace, or they spend other things that may not necessarily save us on energy. So that one's a little bit like, it depends on who you talk to. But with the candy industry, Halloween, they know that they're going to spend, people are going to spend a lot more money, and so they wanted to move it to the first week of November. So they were doing everything, including putting little candy pumpkins on the seats of Senate in the House in order to lobby to get daylight saving time moved forward 1 week. So that is why, at least when this video was made, daylight savings time is always the last week of, the first week, is it the last or the first? We're the last Sunday in March, sorry, I had to think about that for a second. Last Sunday in March to the last Sunday in October, or in November. I'm totally tripping up. But they did that in 2007. So it took many years for the candy industry to lobby the Senate to change daylight savings time to the last Sunday in March, from the last Sunday in March to the last Sunday in October. I said it again, to the first Sunday in November. I'm gonna get that straight one time. Last Sunday in March, first Sunday in November, done. Okay, that's the law. Now, if you go over to Europe, this is something that we do a lot of business in Europe, and oftentimes here at the Abingdon Company, it's really easy to schedule meetings when you're across different time zones in Greenwich Mean Time. And I remember missing a meeting with Girls at Scuba. If you're a scuba diver, then you're probably a member of Girls at Scuba if you're female. It's one of the coolest organizations. And Sarah Richard, the president of Girls at Scuba, Sarah, I'm calling this out because it was just kind of funny that we missed one of our meetings because of this. We always schedule in Greenwich Mean Time, which a lot of people assume is also the same time as the UK. That is not an accurate statement. Britain has British summertime. So during those summer months, they are 1 hour, I'm trying to think here, what time is it right now in Britain? We are 1 hour, Greenwich Mean Time is 1 hour behind British summertime. So it is gonna fall back in the last week of October, which interestingly enough, they did not have candy lobbyists in Britain. Therefore, they still go to the last weekend of October. In fact, most of the countries in Europe do daylight savings time on the last weekend of October. US and Canada, we don't. We listen to the candy makers. But that is an interesting fact that if you think of Greenwich Mean Time, it is not always London time or England time. They are, for at least the summertime, British summertime. So just another kind of interesting play that you don't always get Greenwich Mean Time during the UK time. So they are off by an hour, at least for about half the year. What else do we have? I think those are all the major things about daylight savings time. The way I remember, if it's, let's see, we're on Pacific time, so PST or PDT. PST, I always think of it as Pacific Summer Time because it's the summer hours is Pacific Standard Time. And then PDT, when we fall back in October, PDT is Pacific Daylight Time. So I always think of it as Pacific Dark Time because the winter time is usually dark. So if there's like kind of an easy way to think about it, then do the STs, Pacific Savings, bleh, Pacific Summertime, or like how the Britons already call it, British Summertime. And then in the winter, it's PDT, which is Pacific Dark Time. And whatever time zone you're in, you can just kind of, change it to yours. So those are all the interesting things. I have a feeling that probably within my lifetime, since it's already changed a couple times in my lifetime, it's probably going to change country by country. I mean, if only 40% of the countries are even observing daylight savings time, chances are there's either going to be more changes within our lives. So it's not really something that I think is like hard fact, it's got to be this way or the highway. I think time is a very interesting, dynamic, fluid part of our lives. And daylight savings times is just one of those examples where that is the case. So real quick, I'm going to show you how to change them on your watch. So if you do have an Abingdon watch, I'm going to show it on 3 different examples here. So we've got a Ronda Movement, we've got a Miyota Movement, and I'll, if you don't have a Jordan or an Elise, I'll tell you what other watches do have the Ronda and the Miyota movements, and then I'm also going to show it to you on our Marina, which is an auto. So the Jordan here is a Miyota FS20. It's the same movement that's used in the Jackie and the Catherine, as well as, well, honestly, any watch that we use a stopwatch with, you're going to have a Miyota movement in it. It's one of my favorite movements. The FS20 is probably the most reliable quartz chrono movement or multifunction movement that I've come across, and I've been using it now for over a decade, and I really, really like this movement. And to change it for the time is super simple. It's pretty standard like any other watch. that one might have. So I'm gonna kind of like look at the camera, but then also look at the watch here for a second. So basically you've got two subdials. The 3 o'clock subdial is the one that you want to keep an eye on. And it's funny because if you got that play on words, a lot of people call them the eyes of the watch. But you want, that's a 24-hour clock in there. So you want to make sure that when you do change it, I recommend changing it in the daytime between the hours of noon and, well, honestly, between the hours of 8 and 8. That's kind of when I always change watches. It just makes it safe so you don't have a date change in the middle of the day. But you want to sync up your 24-hour clock with your hour and local. So if you pull the crown out 2 clicks and then you rotate it to the next hour, then you are springing forward. If you rotate it away from you, it's going to go backwards, and that's when you're falling back. So it doesn't matter which way you rotate the crown, towards you or away from you. That's all you have to do is pull the crown out 2 clicks, rotate it towards you if you're going to spring forward, rotate it away from you if you're going to fall back. And that's basically how you change it. And then just push the crown back in 2 clicks and you're set. That's how you do it on a Miyota. Now on the Ronda, which is our GMT movement, it's a little bit different. Now you still have, I should say, we used to use the Miyota 6M17 GMT movement. That one is very different. Now, I've done a video on that before, and I will, because we haven't used that movement since 2014, I'm gonna have to see if we ever put that up on YouTube. It's been a while. I'll have to put that in the description or like kind of like in one of the little pop-ups if I can find it. It may not be on anymore, but I do know that we have that video that I can just send it to you if you have one of our earlier models. That movement is very different. And in fact, I think I'm actually wearing that one on my Amelia watch. So if you do that one, I'm not gonna go over it on this video. Let me see if I do. Yeah, it is this movement. So one of the interesting things, I'm gonna kind of show this to you, and I'm gonna see if this can get. So as I move it, you notice how the hour hand is like wiggling up? That is totally a different means of changing the daylight savings time. So you can change the hour independently of the minute hand and the GMT hand on a Miyota 6M17 movement. It's a little bit trickier. So I can go over that with you specifically, but we haven't used that movement in a long time, like I said, since 2014. So I'm not gonna go over it in this video. Probably not gonna go back to that movement either, because the Ronda is a much easier movement to change. And it's very similar to the Miyota. So again, 2 clicks out and you rotate it towards you to go an hour forward. You rotate it backwards to go an hour back. So spring forward towards you, fall back behind you. And I'll kind of do that for the camera here. So as you can see, I'm springing forward and then I'm falling back. And with this one, you don't have that eye that you have on the Miyota that shows the 24-hour clock. You do have an entirely second time zone on the red numbers on the inside. So do keep an eye on that if you have it set to a particular time zone that you want to make sure you keep. If they don't observe daylight savings time, I can tell you Japan does not. So if you have that set up on Japan time, then you're going to have to just push the crown in 1 click and then rotate it back to whatever that time zone is. But that's all you do on that. Again, 2 clicks out, rotate it forward to spring forward, rotate it backwards to fall back. There's that. So you've got the Ronda, you've got the Miyota, and then for the automatic, it's exactly the same thing. Do you see how I like consistency? We just keep it simple, right? So with automatics, all you have to do, again, 2 clicks out, you can rotate it forward to spring forward, rotate it backwards to spring back, to fall backwards. Now, with automatics, because there are springs involved, I don't recommend falling back and rotating it backwards. You really just want to, during the fall months? Yeah. During the fall months, you want to just rotate it forward all the way around until you're an hour back. So it's just kind of something, not only does it wind the watch, which you should do with an automatic, but it's just a, I wouldn't say it's like a safer, but it's a better way. I'm just gonna put it that way. It's a better way to always rotate forward. And that's with any automatic watch. You just kind of want to do that, make it a habit. It's not that hard to do. It takes an extra 30 seconds, and then you know everything is working properly on the inside. This doesn't have any batteries. Automatic watches need to be treated a little bit differently, a little bit more carefully than quartz watch movements. So there's that. And then you just click it back in, 2 clicks, and you're all set. So there's your history lesson for today. You found out a whole bunch of stuff about daylight savings time. If you don't know spring forward, fall back, it's a really easy way to remember it. Make sure that you set your clocks, spring forward, fall back. It actually happens at 2 a.m. It does not happen at midnight like everybody thinks. Your phone will automatically change for you, so that's kind of nice. But your watches don't necessarily do that. So that is the easiest way to do it. Just pull 2 clicks out, rotate it forward, rotate it backward, unless you're on an automatic. Then you just go forward the whole time. And like I said, if you've not subscribed to this channel yet, go ahead, click the subscribe button, hit that bell to get notified. We do watches, we do videos on watches, we do videos on adventures, on flying and diving and racing and just all sorts of super cool stuff. But every time you see me live, it's probably gonna be about watches. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.